In a world constantly filled with noise, distractions, and an overwhelming desire to be heard, the greatest strength often lies in stillness. When I say that my speech is a reflection of internal silence turned into wisdom, I am referring to something that cannot be measured in volume or visibility. This kind of speech doesn't come from a reaction, it comes from a place of still understanding. It is the voice that emerges only after one has listened long enough to what lies within, not the shallow surface noise of random thoughts or momentary emotions, but the deeper current that flows when all else has settled. That place of calm awareness is where the roots of wisdom are planted. My speech is a product of that quiet soil, cultivated through patience, humility, and introspection. There were times when I spoke too quickly, when my words were driven by impulse, fear, or the need to prove something. In those moments, I wasn't connected to silence. I was reacting, not responding. I was speaking, but not communicating. True communication begins in silence. It is only in silence that we can truly listen, to ourselves, to others, to life. Internal silence is not passive. It is alert, alive, and full of presence. It is in those quiet moments that we begin to notice what truly matters. We learn to separate the essential from the unnecessary, the real from the imagined. Through this quiet discernment, wisdom begins to take shape. My speech today stands on the foundation of that discernment. Internal silence is not something that happens automatically. It is a discipline. It is cultivated over time through repeated effort, through choosing to sit quietly when chaos tempts us to act, through observing our thoughts without being dominated by them, through watching emotions rise and fall like waves without losing ourselves in the tide. In those moments of stillness, we begin to see clearly. We begin to see how often we speak without understanding, how often we try to control what cannot be controlled. And when we stop trying to fill every moment with noise, we start to discover the profound strength that lives in silence. This strength doesn't scream, it whispers, and when it does, the few words it gives birth to carry more power than 1,000 loud ones. My speech is not filled with decoration or performance. It is simple because silence has taught me that simplicity carries purity. I don't speak to impress, but to express something real. Realness is rare in a world driven by performance, but silence reveals the real. It shows you who you are when no one is watching. It confronts you with your fears, your limitations, your unhealed wounds. And it doesn't offer quick fixes. It invites you to sit, to watch, to breathe, and to feel. The longer you sit with silence, the more you begin to notice its quiet lessons. You learn that not everything needs a reaction. Not every emotion needs to be acted upon. Not every thought deserves your voice, and when you internalize that wisdom, your speech changes. It becomes intentional. It becomes grounded. Wisdom doesn't shout. It doesn't seek attention. It lives in the background, waiting for the moment when it's truly needed. That's what internal silence teaches. It teaches us the power of restraint. It teaches us the value of timing. It shows us that speaking from a place of inner peace has more impact than speaking from anxiety. It's filled with long hours of solitude, of sitting in discomfort, of watching the mind try to escape, and gently bringing it back again and again. It's in those moments where you face your own shadows and stay present with them that something inside shifts. That shift is subtle, but over time it transforms everything. It transforms how you think, how you act, how you speak. Speech that comes from a person who has sat with their own darkness carries a different energy. It carries depth, it carries compassion, it carries humility, because once you've seen your own inner chaos and survived it, you no longer judge others for theirs. That's part of the wisdom silence gives. When I speak with all the quiet battles behind me, all the moments I chose stillness over noise, all the times I chose patience over reaction, all the reflections that came not from books or teachers, but from sitting still and letting life speak. Because life does speak, but only to those who are willing to listen, and listening requires silence. It requires that we stop trying to control the outcome and start trusting the process. My speech reflects that trust. It reflects a journey that hasn't always been easy, but has always been honest. Honesty is born in silence because silence doesn't lie. It simply shows you what is, and once you've seen what is, you can begin to speak from a place of truth. This kind of truth is not rigid. It is not about being right. It is about being real. Being real means you don't need to defend yourself constantly. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win every argument. You simply speak what needs to be spoken and let it go, because you trust that the silence behind your words will carry them where they need to go. That kind of trust cannot be faked. It comes from experience, from walking through the fire of silence and coming out the other side with a clearer vision. And when your vision is clear, your words naturally follow. They align, they resonate. My speech is not just a collection of sentences. It is a reflection of a deeper process, a process of observing, refining, and distilling. It is the end result of countless hours of silence, of not knowing, of searching, of letting go. That process has taught me more than any noise ever could. And so, I don't take speech lightly. I don't speak just to fill silence. I speak because silence has spoken to me, and now it flows through me. And what it gives me to say, I offer, not with pride, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the silence that shaped me, gratitude for the wisdom it revealed, and gratitude for the opportunity to share it, not for applause, but in the hope that it may awaken something in others as silence once awakened something in me. My speech is a bridge between discipline and personal freedom. This may sound like a contradiction, but it is in fact a deep truth realized only through experience. In the beginning, discipline feels restrictive. It feels like a set of limitations, rules, or boundaries that are meant to confine us. We are told to wake up early, to train consistently, to repeat the same actions even when we don't feel like it. It feels heavy, but over time, discipline reveals itself as something entirely different. It becomes the path to real freedom, not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom from being controlled by our impulses, our distractions, and our lower nature. My speech today is built on this truth. Each word I speak is shaped by the discipline I have embraced and the freedom that has grown from it. There was a time when I believed that freedom meant escape. Escape from rules, from schedules, from responsibilities. I thought freedom was the ability to say what I want, do what I want, be who I want without constraint. But living that way led me nowhere. It brought inconsistency, confusion, and chaos. I was not free. I was a prisoner to mood, emotion, and craving. That realization was painful, but it was necessary. Pain, too, can be a teacher when we stop running from it. Through that pain, I found the value of structure. I found the value of self-control. I began to understand that true freedom is not the absence of discipline. It is found within discipline itself. It is through repeating uncomfortable actions that strength is born. It is through routine that mastery begins. It is through sacrifice that clarity emerges. My speech is built on this path. Discipline at its core is not punishment, it is devotion, devotion to something higher than impulse, devotion to growth, devotion to a standard of living that does not depend on temporary feelings. It is the commitment to walk the path even when no one is watching. It is the agreement made between who we are now and who we are becoming. In that agreement, something powerful grows, a foundation forms, and from that foundation, we are able to build a life that is not moved by every wind. My words are not formed by random thoughts. They are formed by consistent reflection, consistent practice, and consistent surrender to a greater process. That is what gives my speech its weight. It is not loud, but it is rooted, not sharp, but steady. The discipline I speak of is not external force. It is internal alignment. It is the decision to no longer let our weaknesses lead us. It is the moment when we decide that our time matters, our energy matters, our purpose matters. And that decision must be made again and again, every single day. That is the nature of discipline. It is not about perfection, it is about persistence, about returning to the path, no matter how many times we fall off. My speech reflects that persistence. It is not the voice of someone who never stumbled, but of someone who always stood back up. Every sentence I share is built on repetition, on the willingness to do what is necessary, not just what is easy. Through discipline, I learned how to direct my thoughts, how to train my attention, how to stay present even when discomfort arises. These are not small things. These are the tools of inner transformation. And when the inner world transforms, the outer world follows. I used to speak from a place of reaction. Now I speak from a place of response. I used to wait for motivation to arrive. Now I rely on commitment. That shift is everything. It has changed the way I live, the way I train, the way I think, and the way I speak. Freedom, real freedom, came not when I avoided discipline, but when I embraced it fully. The bridge between discipline and personal freedom is built step by step, every early morning, every mindful breath, every repetition of an uncomfortable truth. Each step across that bridge reveals more of who we are. We begin to see that we are not our emotions, we are not our habits, we are not our distractions, we are something deeper, something more powerful, and when we discover that, we begin to speak differently, not to impress, but to express what is real. My speech is no longer guided by a desire to be accepted. It is guided by a desire to be aligned with truth, with purpose, with growth. Freedom is not doing what feels good in the moment. It is the ability to choose what is right even when it's hard, and that ability is earned through discipline. The more disciplined we become, the more space we create within ourselves, space to observe, space to choose, space to create, and that space is what allows wisdom to enter. That space is where clarity lives, and when clarity speaks, the words don't need to be many, they just need to be true. I do not claim to have all the answers, but I have learned to trust the process, and in trusting the process, I have learned how to speak from a place of depth rather than surface. Discipline gave me the ability to hear the voice beneath the noise. It gave me the patience to wait until I understood before I spoke. It gave me the humility to accept correction and the strength to begin again. These qualities have nothing to do with talent and everything to do with practice. Daily, silent, committed practice. My speech is only a reflection of that invisible work, the training that no one sees, the battles fought alone, the choices made in silence. This is the discipline that leads to freedom, and it is this freedom that makes my speech not just sound, but substance. Freedom through discipline is not a theory, it is a lived reality. It is the ability to move through the world with calmness, with clarity, with control. It is not rigid, but fluid. It does not resist life, but moves with it. It allows us to bend without breaking, to endure without losing our center. This kind of freedom is what makes speech powerful, not because of the words used, but because of the energy behind them. That energy comes from knowing yourself, mastering yourself, and respecting the power of speech. My speech is a reflection of this inner structure. It is not spontaneous noise. It is deliberate communication shaped by effort, shaped by focus, shaped by intention. In a world that promotes instant gratification, discipline is radical. It is the quiet rebellion that builds strength slowly, and the freedom it produces is not given, it is earned. This freedom cannot be taken away by circumstance, by opinion, or by failure, because it lives inside. And when something lives inside, it can speak with calm, with confidence, and with care. This is why I say my speech is a bridge between discipline and personal freedom, because I have walked that bridge. I have fallen from it, I have climbed back onto it, and with every step I have become more free, not by escaping structure, but by embodying it. This is the freedom I offer through my words, not as a gift, but as a possibility for anyone willing to walk the path. My speech is a reminder that transformation begins with awareness. Before any change can occur, before any action can take root, before any new path can be taken, there must be awareness. Without awareness, we are blind to our habits, blind to our reactions, and blind to the very cycles that keep us bound. My words are not meant to impress, nor are they crafted to entertain. They exist to point towards something far deeper, the subtle but powerful awakening that happens the moment we become aware. Aware of our thoughts, aware of our choices, aware of our direction. That awareness is the first spark that lights the fire of transformation. Nothing changes until we first notice what is happening. That noticing is where the journey truly begins. We live much of our lives in patterns. We wake, we react, we repeat. We carry assumptions, beliefs, emotions, and behaviors from one moment to the next. Is the root of all transformation. My speech is built on this understanding. Not every word I say is meant to give you answers. Some are meant to wake you up. Some are meant to interrupt the noise of assumption. Some are meant to guide you back to yourself, because the truth is, all change is self-change. No one can do it for you. No one can live your life, face your pain, or walk your path. But if my speech can act as a mirror, if it can help you see even one thought more clearly, then it has served its purpose. Because from that clarity a decision can be made, and from that decision a new way of being can emerge. Transformation is not something that happens in a moment. It is a process, a gradual, sometimes painful process of breaking, reshaping, and rebuilding. But it always begins in the same place, with awareness. When you start to observe your thoughts instead of becoming them, when you start to witness your emotions instead of being ruled by them, you reclaim your power. That power is not found in controlling the external world. It is found in mastering the internal world, and awareness is the first step in that mastery. My speech is a reflection of this process. It is shaped by years of watching my own mind, studying my own patterns, and realizing how easily we become prisoners of our own thinking. When I speak with the intention to wake something up in others. Not by shouting, not by forcing, but by reminding. reminding you that everything you need to begin transforming is already inside you. It is not something you must acquire. It is something you must notice. That noticing is where awareness begins, and once you are aware, you can never go back to being fully asleep. The light of awareness, once lit, continues to reveal. It shows you the ways you limit yourself. It shows you the beliefs that no longer serve you. It shows you the truth that you may have been avoiding, and in that truth, even if it is uncomfortable, lies your freedom. My speech is not a command. It is an invitation to look deeper, to pause more often, to listen more carefully, not just to others but to yourself, because your life is always speaking to you, through your emotions, your reactions, your resistance, your habits. Every moment is feedback, and awareness is the skill of receiving that feedback without judgment, simply seeing what is as it is. From that honest seeing, you gain the power to choose differently. You are no longer a victim of your programming. You become a conscious participant in your own evolution. Transformation is not just about changing behavior. It is about changing the mind behind the behavior, changing the identity behind the choices. And this kind of transformation cannot be forced. It must be nurtured. It must be watered daily with awareness. Each time you catch yourself before reacting, each time you pause before speaking, each time you notice your inner voice and question it, you are transforming. These moments may seem small, but they accumulate. They build the foundation of a new self, a self that is not chained by fear, not driven by ego, not controlled by conditioning. That is the self my speech seeks to awaken. I do not speak from theory. I speak from experience, from countless moments of falling and getting back up, from witnessing my own limitations and slowly unraveling them through awareness, from learning that no external change matters if the internal world remains the same. We can change jobs, change relationships, change locations, but if we do not change the mind that perceives, nothing truly changes. This is why awareness is everything. It is the starting point of real transformation, the kind that changes how we live, how we speak, how we love, and how we suffer. There is a quiet power in becoming aware. It is not flashy. It does not seek attention, but it transforms everything it touches, the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you interact with others. Awareness brings light to the darkness. It reveals what has been hidden, and what has been hidden can finally be healed. This is the essence of what I speak. Not quick fixes, not empty motivation, but real, grounded awareness. Because only through awareness can you begin to take ownership of your life. Not by blaming, not by waiting, but by to the breath, the body, the now. All change begins here, not in the future, not when everything is perfect, but here in this moment, with this breath, with this awareness. So when I speak, I do not aim to teach you anything new. I aim to remind you of what you already know. Deep down, beneath the distractions, beneath the fear, beneath the story, you already know, and my speech is simply a reflection of that knowing. A voice to echo what your inner wisdom has been whispering all along. Pay attention, wake up, watch closely, because transformation is not something far away. It is already happening, and all it asks from you is to be aware. My speech is not to change others, but to reveal what already lies within. The intention behind every word I speak is not rooted in the desire to control, persuade, or impose. It is not my purpose to make anyone different, to push them into becoming something else, or to mold them into a vision I believe they should follow. Rather, it is to hold a mirror, to shine a light, to gently peel back the layers so they might see more clearly what has always been there, hidden perhaps, ignored maybe, but never absent. True change cannot be forced. It cannot be demanded or inserted from the outside. It must rise from within, like a seed awakening in the soil. My speech serves only as the rain or the sun, not the seed itself. The seed is already there, quietly waiting for the right moment to grow. Too often, we assume that transformation means adding something new, acquiring something external, or becoming something we are not. But in truth, when spoken not with force but with clarity and sincerity, acts like a key. It opens doors that were locked not by others but by ourselves. My speech seeks to offer that kind of key, not one that forces doors open, but one that invites you to try the handle yourself. I cannot walk into your inner world and rearrange things. That is not my right and not my role, but I can point to the place where clarity begins. I can offer words that encourage reflection, that stir memory, that ignite recognition. When people hear something that resonates deeply, it's not because they're learning something entirely new. It's because a part of them remembers something is being reawakened. That is the role of my speech, to reawaken, not to replace. There is a sacredness in allowing people to unfold in their own time. We live in a world that rushes, that demands quick answers and instant results. But human growth does not follow a linear timeline. Each person has their own rhythm, their own timing, their own path. To truly serve others through speech is not to disrupt that timing, but to honor it. My words are not a push, they are a presence, a quiet presence that says, look within, see for yourself, feel what is already there, trust your own inner knowing. There is a temptation, especially for those who have experienced some level of insight or peace, to try to give that experience to others, but experiences cannot be handed over like objects. They must be lived. They must be earned through personal insight. My journey has been shaped not by what others told me, but by what I discovered in silence, in solitude, in reflection. And I know that the most powerful words are not those that try to instruct, but those that inspire self-inquiry. So when I speak, I don't tell people what to think or feel. I invite them to observe. I invite them to notice, to become curious about their own experience, because from that curiosity, something powerful begins to emerge. Even the most beautiful truth, if pushed too forcefully, can become a burden. That is why my speech is not about changing minds, but about opening hearts. When the heart opens, the mind follows. And when both align, transformation happens, not because someone made it happen, but because the conditions were right. My speech is only one condition among many. It is not the cause of change, only a potential catalyst. The real work always happens within. I have learned through time and reflection that we cannot save people. We cannot fix them, but we can show them what it looks like to live with honesty, with presence, with intention. It is already inside. Sometimes the most powerful words are not explanations, but questions. Questions that point inward, questions that stop the momentum of habitual thinking and invite a deeper look. Who am I beneath the surface? What do I truly value? What am I avoiding? What am I capable of becoming? My speech is filled with these kinds of questions, not to provide answers, but to open pathways. The answers, if they come, must come from within, and when they do, they bring with them a sense of ownership. A sense of knowing that cannot be shaken by outside opinions or circumstances. That kind of knowing is unshakable because it is discovered, not borrowed. I do not seek to change others because I know the journey of change must be self-directed. I have walked through doubt, through confusion, through resistance, and I know how deeply personal that walk is. I would not interfere with that path, but I can share what I've learned from my own, not as a blueprint, but as a possibility. Not as a command, but as an offering. My speech carries with it not authority, but humility, not the claim of having all the answers, but the commitment to speak only what feels real, what feels alive, what feels rooted in experience. Everyone holds within them a quiet potential, a deeper truth, a forgotten strength. My speech exists not to add more noise to the world, but to help you hear your own voice more clearly, not to cover, but to uncover, not to impose, but to remind. And if in listening to my words, something in you begins to stir, if a question arises, a memory returns, a feeling awakens, then that is enough. That is the beginning. Because that stirring is the signal that you are reconnecting with what has always been there, waiting not to be changed, but to be revealed.